begin with the good news.
Okay, well, just a few things that I have in there. I had a little blurb on marching band camp for you, on a nice Noon Lions donation of some school supplies. A little bit about the sixth grade orientation, which for the record was accomplished with physical distancing, and then an update on the auditorium rigging. So just a few things there for you to look at, and as we get rolling and hopefully get back to some semblance of normal, there'll be more good news. But we're still kind of coming out of the summer season, and that's where we're at for today.
All right, thanks, Art. Let's see, any here to speak?
We do, yeah. Okay. We do have some speakers today.
There you go.
Yeah.
Talking here or anywhere?
They're
One in the
gonna
middle.
come stand right out here, and that's, you'll be able to hear them, the mic will pick them
I
up,
can't even.
and then they can be distanced. So,
Where you want? In the fishbowl?
Yep,
Oh, right in the middle?
yeah.
That's really nice. That's exactly what I love.
Right up here, and the mic will pick you up, and then you'll be distanced from people.
All right. Hi, I'm Lisa Paz, because nobody can see my last name, Kozhguski. And I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible, you guys. I guess my concern as a parent is I don't like to bring, I'm not a big emotion person. I like data. And so, and I think I wrote a few of you guys before, but my concern is we're getting to the point where school's starting. We're looking at, mask mandates, which will be coming up with potential for the elementary students and things like that. And, the AAP is changing their guidelines, although it does conflict with their other guidelines. So there's some things out there that'll be, that are open for discussion and things like that. And so basically what I want to do is just bring it from just a parent point of view of when I'm looking at what you guys are doing. Please know, I totally understand that, and I've talked with Art about this, I know that you guys are between a rock and a hard place. You guys are, this is a no-win situation. You're never gonna make every parent happy. And you can't deal with kids and do that. So I completely get that. My concerns are, we've done the mask mandates for the middle school and high school. I voiced my stuff with that. Obviously some of my concerns with that is who's monitoring, who's ensuring proper wearing, how are you keeping track of the exemptions? Are there consequences? I don't think I've ever heard whether there's going to be consequences if kids do not or refuse to wear them during class and things like that. So I haven't heard those come out of it. Are we going to be looking at, is there going to ever be an emotional consideration? Especially as we delve into talking about the younger kids, is there going to be a lack of understanding? And I will write this stuff down and get this to you guys because I know I'm going to throw out a whole bunch of stuff. When I'm looking at this, and I'm sorry, this is where the geek comes out, the breakdown of Warren County is, for me, I'm having a hard time seeing the justification. Our total population is 51,466 as of 2019. Of that, under 18 makes up about 25 or a quarter of the total population at about 10,808. Of that, then we take out, because we're talking about school-age children, under 5 is 6.2%, so that's 3,191, leaving us with 7,617 of school-age children in Warren County, right? When we look at the total population, the 65 and over make up 16%, which leaves us with the rest of us who fall into about the 59.4% of the population at 30,365. When we look at the numbers in Warren County of our total numbers, the school-age children, approximately 1% of Warren County is affected by COVID at this point with what we have with positives. When we're looking at the general population, so people within that middle group, it's about 2% of Warren County adults are affected or have tested positive. And then when we look 65 and over, which is only the 16%, about 1% is affected. We have about 72 kids that over the course of this period of time this year who have 0 to 17 who have been affected and tested positive. 1840, we have 289, 41 to 60, 197. And that's the population that we're kind of talking about, those teachers and the students. And so we have 486 of that middle ground, and then 72 children that have been affected and tested positive with COVID. Of that, 85 of them have been asymptomatic, which is a 0.2% of all of Warren County. Pending is 138 at 0.3%. Again, total population, symptomatic 62% at 407. But that still only makes up 0.8% of Warren County as a whole. And then unknown is just 0.05. When we look at what we've dealt with and where we're at, anybody who knows statistics knows that 2017 and 2018, we had a really bad flu year. Teachers know this better than anybody. We had a lot of students out. Students were, and kids were, some of the highest affected in that when we were doing that. During that period of time, so it was a 5-month period of time, the rates of influenza were the highest, like I said, amongst the school-age children. Older adults really were affected again, accounting for 75% of the influenza-related deaths. And there was an estimated 8,100. At that time, we never talked masks. We never talked about shutting down schools. We never talked about any of this. So my concern is when we're talking about this and we look at the broader picture and we're looking at Warren County's numbers and 1.79% of the total population being affected directly with positive results. We're doing a lot of things for a small percentage of the population. Now, does this affect everybody? Yes. Is this a fast-moving virus? We know that this happens. Again, our flu seasons, 2017 to 2018, 2018 to 2019, and on, obviously, into 2020, we are seeing a high number of flu cases. So this isn't something we haven't dealt with before, with kids getting sick, with that passing on to teachers and things like that. So as a parent, I really do ask that as we're looking at all of this stuff, that we keep things in perspective as to how many people are actually affected and how can we help mitigate this, how can we help as parents, how can we help with our students, and what can we do to support you guys, but in return, how can we open communication with the school board that we can have more discussions like this where we're able to come in and look at, hey, how many people are actually affected and what can we do to make sure that we're not acting on the 1% that we're looking up for the 99.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey,
Two in the middle.
Yeah, just
Oh, I have to stand there.
would you like to make me a chair?
I don't know. I have a heart condition, and so kind of when I get nervous, I.
Well, you can sit in that chair. You can be Sue for the day.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
We don't bite.
I mean, you don't have to bite for me to be nervous. First, I'd like to thank each one of you for your service this year. I can't imagine the time, the stress, lack of sleep, lots of family time you have all had to sacrifice to be part of this team that helps lead our district. I really, truly am. Our kids are our most important asset and investment. You all know that, or you wouldn't be sitting here today. I've taken the time to do some research myself and wanted to share with you some of the findings and concerns to help paint a broader picture. I understand that this school board may be driven to vote in a way that will offer protection from liability. Please do not let fear drive those decisions. To anyone, any one of you, who has been or may consider threatening to, or no, maybe this isn't you. To anyone who has been or may consider threatening to the board members or another school administration, I would like to remind you that these people are our friends and neighbors. So that's to anyone listening. They are not responsible or liable for the health of our children. It is up to us as individual families, guided by our own trusted and chosen healthcare professionals, to make the best choices for our own children. They have gone above and beyond to offer us several options for our children's education, understanding that there is simply not a one-size-fits-all answer. The World Health Organization definition of health is the following. Health is a complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of a disease or infirmity. It seems ironic to me that we are looking to this organization for all the latest COVID-19 related information, but are seemingly ignoring 2 out of the 3 very important aspects that define our total and complete health. 2 components of the very much affect the third. I had some information about masks that I'm going to pass on for now. And I actually wrote this part before I found out about the second teacher in 6th grade that was also positive for COVID. I do have a 6th grade student. So I received an email about about my 6th graders, teachers, being exposed to a COVID positive individual. I reached out to one of these teachers. It sounds like many of them are heartbroken. They will not be allowed to welcome the new students. As an essential worker, why are they not given the opportunity to return if symptom-free? Nurses, as essential workers, are required to return when symptom-free, even if their own family members have tested positive. I'm a cosmetologist, and I have had many conversations with many nurses. On Saturday, I just talked to a peds oncology nurse, and she said even if her husband tested positive, she is still expected to be at work. After being concerned for the affected teachers and hoping they are all well, my next concern is for my 6th grader, or for the 6th graders who are already making a big transition and have experienced so many unexpected changes with this upcoming year as it is. We are concerned for the educators, but please understand the kids are the ones who are coming up with the short end of the stick yet again. Not only regarding their education, but also their mental and social well-being. These students were able to meet their teachers a week ago, a much-needed event to help with some anxieties about making the switch to middle school. It was comforting to have met the friendly faces that would be greeting them on the first day, only to be thrown another wrench just prior to the first day. Which, yet again, we have another wrench, that he can't go back to school. And that conversation was not fun. He does have anxiety. He is treated for anxiety. I actually had a meeting in here just days ago with the school psychologist. Is that Tinder? Is that her name? Christy Tinder?
ADA psychologist,
Yep.
school.
Yep. And so having to tell him, and I've already talked to some other moms, they said that the conversation was quite similar. They were frustrated because they were excited, and eyes got teary. All this to say, what happens to our impressionable children who are having their mental and social health affected? We are taking sports, social clubs, experiences, awards, achievements that they have worked for and being promised their entire youth. We are left with empty, fearful children. We have got to shift our focus from one of fear to one of better balance that incorporates every component of overall health. Mental health emergencies, including suicide, are increasing at an alarming rate, especially among children and young adults. Let us lay aside our own fears as we're making decisions for our children and really consider what the end goal is. Confident, healthy children, physically, socially, and mentally. I also have a nephew who's a senior, and so knowing and seeing those kids, it's a lot for them to handle all of this. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
All right.
You want Lee to come in?
Just, tell them 1 second. Sorry, go ahead. We haven't approved the consent agenda yet, have we?
No. All right, yeah, we can go ahead and, letter E is the consent agenda.
You need to change Art,
What's that?
the open enrollment.
Yes, I did. I made the board aware. There is one change from that. I had multiple open enrollment decisions that I was asking you to decline. There's one of those that I worked out with another district. There was a change of residence involved, as well as cost per pupil involved, and that's something that I was able to work out with their superintendent and able to help that family and keep their kids from having to be in 2 different districts in a very short time period. So I have pulled 2 of those out of there. So I just wanted to update you on that as well.
And those two are, I mean,
Those are the 2 that were to I-35.
siblings.
Yep, and they are siblings, yep.
I'll move approval of consent agenda.
Motion made by Ken to approve the consent agenda,
Second.
seconded by Lori. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next would be,
Lee Nelson. Just step right up in the middle there, Lee.
All right, well, thanks for having me in here tonight. Art had asked me to kind of just go through what we're doing from an activity standpoint now, and really our immediate issues were athletically. I met with the fine arts teachers today at about 3. We met via Zoom to just kind of talk about what concerts could look like in November, but we more just made like a general game plan of that attack, as we know that things will change quite a bit between now and then. So in the immediate, with the different sports that we have going on this fall, before practices started, I sent out guidance to all of our high school parents and athletes, just the typical get your forms turned in, the things that we would do every year, and then some of the things that we're doing differently. The biggest thing we're probably doing is we're sanitizing equipment a lot more than we would have ever done before. And you think about football and the amount of shared equipment there is in that. So each night we sanitize the footballs, the shoulder pads, the helmets, the chairs they sit on where they would meet. So that sport just provides some different challenges this fall than we would have had in the summer, or like a golf or cross country that kind of lends itself to being a little bit more spread out. So each sport is going to operate under the same basic guidelines, but then we're going to do some things differently. If we're going to have a team meeting, we're going to make sure that we spread out as well as we can and have them wear masks. When they go in the locker room, we ask that they wear masks. Just things that we can do to kind of help hopefully make our seasons last as long as possible. I think our goal in our department is to give the most opportunities to the most amount of kids. So that's kind of the premise that we operated under when we came up with these different guidelines. I have a copy of these. If you guys haven't seen them, just send me an email and I'll email you our fall guidance and then also our spectator guidance. Spectator-wise, we're trying to do the best we can with maybe the situation that we're given, kind of how we would do it with everything. We have gone through, if you go out to the stadium, every other row of bleachers is marked off. I will not take the full credit for that because John did a lot of the taping, and it was a lot of tape and a lot of signs. I would say on Friday night, we had a couple people that sat on those rows that they weren't supposed to be, and it was easy, just take and you scoot up a row or down a row. It really wasn't that big a deal. One thing we're really gonna do out at the stadium is try to promote that south grassy hill behind the end zone as a place to go. Think about it like baseball and softball this summer where they could bring lawn chairs or blankets and sit on. Just ways to get them, spread apart as much as we can. We do have a shortened season and only 3 home games, so we'll learn from the first one on Friday and see what is working well and what's not, and we can always make adjustments to that. We are going to allow a student section. We are going to require masks, just like we would in a passing time for school. I met with our student section leader, Kyra Mathias, last Friday, and we talked, and she was great, and she even told me on Friday, hey, I got so-and-so to move, and I did this, and that's really what I talked to her about, is we always call them student section leaders, but we really haven't asked them to lead. They just come with that title. So that's probably going to be our biggest challenge is making sure that we're being as safe as we can in there. That one also has every other row marked off as well, just like anywhere else in the stadium. We're going to ask people to bring exact change if possible. We'll have change available. We're going to ask them to bring exact change just to minimize that interaction with our gate workers. Obviously, no food or drink is to be brought in. We're going to ask them that as soon as the game is done that they leave the, whatever that is, volleyball, cross country, you think about the finish line at a cross country race, getting them out of that way. So really, we took what was happening in school and tried to implement it the best we could into activities, knowing that some activities are not exactly physically distanced as well as others. So the biggest thing I think is I wouldn't tell our coaches anything different in a individual meeting than I would tell you guys right here. And we're not trying to fool anybody. We're not trying to find loopholes. We're just trying to do our best to give the kids an opportunity to participate. Again, I know the fine arts today, how do we have a concert? That's such a great question. That could go a million different ways. And we had those same conversations. Do we use the gym instead of the auditorium? What are the different things that we can do to make this a safe and enjoyable experience for everybody? Again, if you want a copy of these, I'd be more than happy to send them to you. We have sent them out, especially the spectator ones, to as many people as we could. I know we went K-12 parents with that. Art has helped out on social media. We put it out there on social media too. So we're trying to reach as many people as we can and again, do our best. And I will say thanks for all you guys have done throughout this whole process and knowing that I'm going to thank you in advance for what's going to happen the next few months, because I know that will be tricky and challenging for everybody too. So with that, does anybody have any questions about anything?
Are we limited to the number of visitors we can have Friday?
We are not limited to the number of visitors. I'm trying to use that south grassy area for them. I've talked to Dallin quite a bit today about, have your kids use that area. Get them out there, that way they can spread out, they can have people there, and that will allow, some of the people that need to sit down during the course of a night to have the bleacher area there.
So when the athletes are practicing and the kids are practicing the activities like show choir and stuff, are they required to wear masks?
Show choir was required to wear masks this summer. They will continue to. I would say the bummer is it doesn't look like there'll be much of a competitive show choir season this year. A lot of people are canceling those. We're trying to be creative, maybe make it like a duel where we would have our kids could go out and perform and then we'd have somebody else come out and perform and still get them judged just like they normally would. Those are just preliminary talks that Val, Miles, and myself have had.
Is that because they couldn't social distance?
Yeah, if you've ever been to one of those events, there's probably
I guess
not
I'm
more.
referring to the practice.
The practice, they still social distance as best as possible. A lot of that is the performing, the singing, the cheerleading. When we do that, they're asked to wear masks especially when they're indoors. It was just one of those precautions that as they're doing that study on droplets, they were talking about wearing masks in performance type events.
And how about the athletes when they're practicing?
They are strongly encouraged to wear masks when they cannot physically distance. I know our football team does. a pretty good job. That's the one where they would have probably struggle with that 6-foot rule the most. But again, I think a lot of that comes down to your coaches designing practices where kids aren't next to each other all the time. And I think the biggest struggle with them isn't when they're actually participating, it's when they're standing around. You know, the kid that's not in this drill, the natural instinct is to stand by your buddy. And then that means another buddy, and then there's all sorts of people. So, you know.
You go down there though, there's a lot of them that have their masks on.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there's I'd say 90% of them have their masks
And
on.
I think a lot of that comes down to the modeling. Like if I wear a mask when I go to things and our coaches are wearing masks, that's gonna model to those kids that, you know, that's a good thing. It's not, you know, you're not gonna get made fun of. It's not anything different than anybody else is doing. So it kind of becomes status quo, if you will.
So our athletic directors kind of getting together and sharing their experiences or ideas or creativity.
Yeah, so that's been the nice part throughout this whole thing is, you know, we meet as Little Hawkeye Conference ADs quite a bit. We try to be similar with them, knowing that football is obviously the difference because we're not a conference sport. But a lot of the other things we are going to do so that if somebody comes here or somebody goes to Pella or Norwalk, it's going to look fairly similar so that, you know, people can kind of understand what that is going to look like no matter where they go within the conference.
Thank you, Lee, and I think the goal you mentioned, and good times and bad, I mean, we always want as many kids to participate as possible and for them to have a great experience. Okay, that's that much more challenging now with what's going on, but that goal is still there. So I appreciate all the work of you and John and the coaches and trying to give the kids a good experience still and trying to be creative and safe too.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee.
Move on to letter G, number 1, the 1A, return to learn plan.
Yep. If I could just kind of give a few updates, and I try to keep, you know, the board abreast of what's going on, but just this afternoon too, there have been a number of changes and over the weekend. And I don't know if you've had opportunity to see the video update that I sent out, probably about 3:15 or 3:30 today. We had, as you know, back on Friday evening, gotten a positive test result of a 6th grade teacher. Did our contact tracing Friday into Saturday, worked with Warren County, found out that an additional 7 6th grade teachers had direct contact with that teacher. We spent the weekend and this morning really working on how we could cover for those teachers who were going to be quarantined. I did also put in my communication about that first case that if we couldn't get coverage, that as essential workers, there may be a process by which teachers could come back if they were asymptomatic and tested negative. Put that out there. That's not our go-to. You know, our initial response is we're going to quarantine. So that's where we were at into this afternoon. And we were working out a plan for coverage. We were getting close to figuring that out. And then about 1:15 this afternoon, middle school principal Christy Ellis heard of a second positive among one of the teachers who had been quarantined. Did more contact tracing and found out that second teacher had direct contact with another 5 6th grade teachers. So at this point, we're really at a stage where practically all of our 6th grade team was impacted. You know, and again, working with Warren County Health Services, making that quarantine decision. There is just no way that we could cover those classrooms. Of course, the toughest thing about it, I think, and I hate it for families, is I don't like to send out a communication the afternoon before school starts saying, we can't have your kids come. But that's the situation we were in with that. You know, we will look very closely at our practices. You know, you heard Mr. Nelson talk about trying to physically distance as much as we can at practices. That goes for all of the time at school. You know, classrooms, professional development, everything else. So I think people need to look very closely at that. The other thing that I'm not sure everybody was really thinking about in terms of direct contact and how it's defined is, you know, within 6 feet for 15 minutes, whether or not you have a mask on. So I know people have different opinions about mask, obviously. But, you know, even if you are having your face covered, if you're in close proximity to another person for that extended period of time, you're going to be considered a direct contact. So that's kind of what tripped us up here. And we I think, have pretty clearly talked through and reinforced that. So, you know, hopefully, the way I usually talk about it is there's a lot with this virus we can't control, but what we can control, we want to do a good job with. So, so really unfortunate that communication had to come out as late as it was. It literally could not have been done any more quickly, though, based on when we found out. What I plan to talk more about tonight, before that change in the last few hours, was I just wanted to review a few things in our plan.
Can I interrupt real
Yeah,
quick?
sure,
Being
go
a
ahead.
parent of a sixth grader.
Absolutely.
If they don't have, so technically, some of them schooling won't even start till Thursday because they don't have Chromes or they don't have electronics or internet or anything.
Yeah, and that's another really unfortunate thing. The Chromebook rollout was gonna happen the first 2 days of school and have a little orientation. And now our IT staff is scrambling to put together that rollout Tuesday and Wednesday night, and there will be an email coming. So, yeah, totally agree. In effect, really, there won't be much organized until Thursday.
Okay.
So, yeah, exactly right. I want to talk about remote learning a little bit and some different things that come along with that. And this might seem counterintuitive right on the heels of me talking about going remote, but I'm going to get into talking about that day when hopefully we're coming back on site full-time. You know, we begin this school year, like most districts across the state, offering remote learning to anybody who wants it. Okay, that was recommended. I think that's best practice. People's family situations are so different. People's comfort level and concerns are so different that I really believe the best way to start is just have it be an option for all. So we've done that. We've also been told, I've received legal opinion that when it comes to activities, extracurriculars, that it would be discrimination not to allow remote learners participate. So that's kind of the next piece I know that gets talked about. I think a decision point for the board at some point, and we approved the form or the application for this in one of our last policy approvals. There is a requirement we can put in for remote learners to require medical certification, to have that be an option. Now, again, I think it's totally appropriate, start of the school year, leave it open to anybody who wants it. Maybe if they're just a little uneasy and don't really have a medical reason, that's fine. But at some point, I think we need to know what the metric is when we make that decision. And I've talked to the board about making a decision in October where we might decide that we go back on site all day, every day with remote instruction for those who still need it medically. Okay, that's what I've seen as a potential future end game. Okay, and I want to say it here publicly too, just to be clear about that. So I think as a board, we need to think about, do you want to put that requirement in at some point where you require a medical certification to go remote? And if we do that, I think that would coincide with the time that we were going back on site 5 days, full days. Right now, we are not the norm as a district having that 90-minute early out every day, but we're very conscious of what we're asking our teachers to do. And we're also wanting to provide good remote instruction. So we have that extra time to plan and to deliver synchronous and asynchronous remote learning.
Yeah, just interrupt there.
Go ahead.
So if we offered a medical requirement there, could that also be that somebody in that family, if, say, they had a parent or grandparent living or sibling that had a compromised immune system, that student may not be able to get a note from a doctor, but it would be on, because of their loved one in the household, how are we gonna work around that?
That's a great question, and yes, I believe that would be allowed as well. If they were caring for
Like a grandparent or
an
something.
elderly person at home, or had a sibling who was immunocompromised or something like that.
That would qualify
That
still?
would qualify.
Okay.
Yeah, great question. If we do go full on-site, no early out, and the medical certifications are part of that. Then another piece of that is that our remote programming would undoubtedly change. You know, right now, we're expecting daily contact. Our return to learn plan says that if we go full on-site, that remote learners would have probably weekly direct contact. The rigor of the work would be the same, and I'd like to think that, you know, if there are questions or whatever, our teachers are still gonna do their best to answer, but there would not be an expectation that we'd be putting out that every day they're engaged in that remote instruction. So that would be a change for our remote learners. You know, at that point too, the remote learner and athletic or activity participation thing, that would basically become less of an issue. I know that's been discussed too, but at that point, if you're requiring a medical certification to do the remote learning, that student would still be able to participate, but I'm guessing our numbers of remote learners would probably go down a little bit at that point. So I do want a little bit of direction, or it's not an action item, but I don't know the exact right time to do this. I've talked about around the end of first quarter, which for traditional calendar would be October 26th. It would also make sense to take a look at it October 1st. That's when we've talked about allowing visitors back into our buildings, October 1st. So I have kind of that October time frame in mind. I don't know if the board, maybe I'll just ask you to think about it tonight instead of springing that on you. But think about what the right time might be, given the metrics. We don't know what will happen with the virus, but assuming that things improve, and that we are having a high percentage of our kids attend daily, and we're getting along all right. If we have 90% of our students attending and going face to face, and we're hitting October, maybe that's the point at which we make a change. So
When is the end of first quarter?
October 26th, I believe, for a traditional calendar. For Irving, it would be earlier than that, like maybe that first week of October, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so say, we do that, so what's the hours for the remote learners? Is it still so many, does that affect our, how to say this, how many hours we have to have in for the kids to count, or whatever you call it?
Yeah, it won't be a problem with the counting of instructional hours, because the instructional hours things comes in play where you have to have at least half of your students, or you have to have at least half of your time face to face, and we're already over that. We're in an on-site, we're in a hybrid that has an
And
on-site
even the
component.
remote one, it won't affect the remote
Yeah.
learners that stay
No,
home,
it
they
won't.
can.
That's still an option
Okay.
they can choose, that won't impact our instructional hours.
Okay.
And at that point, I guess right now, do you know what our numbers at Irving are like what percentage we're at right now?
Well, it was 87% back on site,
Uh-huh.
and Mr. Morris told me that he had parents inquire about how soon they could come
Okay.
back on campus.
Okay,
So I think that percentage will be going up.
okay,
Now, I'll tell you too, at the middle school, what we've had happen this week, there have been several families that decided to go remote. So, that could ebb and flow a little bit with how people are feeling. With Irving, we had the positive case day 4, and then we've had weeks of school since with no other positives within the school. So I think people are feeling pretty good, pretty safe about it.
Are we letting them change every 2 weeks? Is
What-
that what we?
Yeah, that's
is
what
it-
we put out, and I can tell you, most schools asked for a semester commitment out of their
I know.
families, and we talked a lot about this administratively. People's situations just change much more frequently than that. So we have asked for a couple of weeks, but I think there have been cases already in Irving where it's been even more fluid than that.
I know some companies are having bringing people back, so.
Yeah, I think we've said 2 weeks just because, there are some things involved with it in terms of attendance codes and class list and schedules and things like that. But I think, I have faith in any building, they would work with any family to do it as quickly as they could.
and then what's a teacher's day look like for if they have in classroom and then some remote learners still? How do they?
Yeah, that is gonna change, and I might invite Mrs. Duran to could you speak to that a little bit? If we, and you're talking about if we go back full on-site, but there still are a few remote learners?
If we go to 3
Yeah.
o'clock.
Yeah.
So we're taking a look at that collaboration time on Wednesdays, where teachers can have 36 hours of collaboration time during the year. Does that professional learning cycle work end, and it solely becomes lesson planning and interacting for remote learners during that time every Wednesday? It might also be something where we have to change and drop PD time at different points in the year and make that more collaboration and planning for remote learners then also. So the other piece too is we are on track too to do a review of the elementary instructional coaches' roles, that maybe if they're doing part of that work, that can lessen the load, since elementary teachers have so many different subjects that they work with. So it could end up being kind of a combination of that piece. So that's why in conversations with Art is we don't know what that will look like coming up, but we need that time to be able to plan with teachers, kind of look at these different models, what are the pros and cons of all of those different things.
Any other question for Art? Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's good, and I, you know, these are big things that impact everybody, families, teachers, and we are in constant conversation about them. The goal all along, or for me personally, and I think for the board, given the model we picked, you know, everybody wants their kids to have as normal a school experience as they can. I guarantee you our teachers want to be in the classroom every day with their students, and everybody wants to be safe too, so we're going to try to do the best we can with mitigation. But you know, we have to react to the circumstances, but we also want to be planful so we don't have to make something up from scratch when something comes up, so that we can respond as quickly as possible, so we communicate as thoroughly and as quickly as possible with families, and you know, life has plenty of curves today anyway for all of us, you know, in work and learning and everything else. So that's why I want to get this out now, even though we haven't officially started traditional calendar. I want to start having you think and talk about, okay, what's the next big potential change? So, and of course, we could have something, you know, we're going to try to prevent it, but we could have some kind of an outbreak at the high school that we have to address, or we could have something else at the middle school or one of the elementaries. You know, we're just getting ready to bring a whole bunch of people back online, and of course we want it to go well, but you know, we're going to do our best with it. But if you would specifically think about that, what that move would look like, what the right time would be potentially, if everything's lining up favorably with the virus, what's that time frame we can get back face-to-face, full on-site, and then how can we still address remote learning for the people we need to? That's kind of the big.
I mean, is it something where with like the October date, I think that seems like a good starting point because it gives time for things to kind of settle in. But would it be just kind of an ongoing thing, like the first of every month, the first meeting of every month, we review it? Because
Yeah.
it could be really fluid, and then it gives parents enough time to adjust if they need to with their work or with their childcare or whatever.
Yeah, I totally support that approach. And we're going to keep Return to Learn on here as an early meeting discussion item. And if there's any kind of something that might require action along with it, we'll have that on as an action item. And any big change too, you know, ideally, before we change instructional models, we would give people a couple weeks' notice. You know, if it's a planned change versus something where we just had to react, like today, it's always my preference to have time to plan and communicate well. Anything else tonight on Return to Learn?
Everything's still going good, Derby?
Yeah, as far as I know, we're and of course they've been out here. They synced up with some professional development days, and they're set to come back Tuesday. But yeah, I think things have settled in well. I really feel good about how happy and engaged, how relieved people are just to be back and have it feel fairly normal. It's really been positive there. So.
Thank you, Art. Moving on to number 2 under G, Board Curriculum Committee meeting report.
I'll start. You can jump in.
I just,
So we met, I don't know, was that last week? And you'll see there's a letter attached there. It's basically saying that our Family and Community Service Program met the criteria for approval. So we will be able to offer those education programs for the next 5 years. We will later have to make an action item to approve the new textbooks that they have for that. So they fall under the Career and Technical Education Department. Am I saying that right? Yes, am I saying that? Okay. And so that's the letter that you see attached there. We also talked about AP Language and Composition. So online different components that are available and different textbooks purchases. We talked about, so there are textbooks available for people if they still would like textbooks versus just pure online all the time. And so on the class link, and this, my notes say the student screen, there's an icon for textbooks online. So they are still able to access them if they want them, but we also have some that actually are in physical that they could also get their hands on as well.
I think the typical practice is to buy a classroom set, right? So there's a set of.
Yeah, that's what the district has moved to over the last several years, is a hard copy classroom set. But
Okay.
also it's bundled with licenses online. And again, that started just a few years ago.
So if there's a child that just doesn't want to do all screen work all the time, they could potentially.
If some students, let's say if they were identified with a concussion,
Yep.
and part of that response is to reduce their amount of screen time, that's also making sure we have something available.
is that just checking it out then through the teachers of it?
Yeah.
And the class link thing that Sue alluded to too is a really neat tool. And that was something that our IT department had going before coronavirus hit. But that is basically a dashboard for students so that they can go right there and have different icons, everything in one place. It's kind of a single sign-on type of idea, find everything in one place, not have to go this place for my science book, this place for my online social studies book, this place for something else. I don't know if you want to, did I explain that well enough, Ray?
Yeah, that's a pretty good explanation. It just gives them one portal to go to go to all of their resources, and they're automatically rostered, so as kids come in and out of classes, those textbooks are automatically assigned and or taken away.
I know we spent some time talking, I had posed the question, are the kids that are going in person currently at Irving supposed to get back online at the end of the day into class pages? Because there was a lot of confusion about that. And so, yes, the answer is no. Once they come home from school, they are done with the day at 1:30 unless a teacher has told them, please log on to class pages and your homework is posted online or something like that. Am I representing that correctly?
It's considered compulsory required learning. So essentially all of our instructional time for students is counting towards our calendar. For example, during their days, science and social studies time is more reduced because they're getting out early. Their science and social studies textbooks are all electronic. And so with that being said, then if the teacher had done some of their instruction during the day, they might have said, I would like for you to read this piece before you come to class tomorrow. That's like front loading for them. And so they're still under required compulsory learning, but it doesn't mean that they're on the screen for 90 minutes each day. And it could be regular type of, a sheet or a journal or different types of learning such as that.
Yeah, and that's exactly the way we explained it in our submission to the Department of Education too, and that's really what our hybrid model is. They have those who are on-site learners, the bulk of their time is that on-site learning, but there is a part of their compulsory education that may be outside of the school day.
We also hired an industrial tech new teacher, and we were very lucky to get this individual. We did not have, there's not many in the state that even are certified to do this, so we've been really very fortunate to get a really good candidate, I think, so that was also something we talked about.
Great. And then there's a curriculum request for approval under number 2B.
And those are the texts, the curriculum materials that were mentioned in the curriculum committee agenda, and just asking for approval for that tonight, so that would be an action item.
I'll move approval.
Do we usually approve textbooks?
You know, we had some discussion of that in committee too. It's probably best practice to have you do it. I don't know that we always have.
Yeah.
You approve every purchase one way or another in the
Right.
bills, but we've kind of gone to calling it out a little more specifically. So
Specifically worded in your board policy that you will.
Oh.
So I'm just saying that when you get into those fine details.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a rule person. So either way, if you approve it through bills, that way if you prefer something like this, which are.
No, I don't mind this, I just don't remember doing it.
yeah,
Okay.
I thought it was a good thing, but you're
Yeah.
right in noting that we really have not done a great job of this in the past. So.
Okay. I'll second.
Motion made by Ken to approve, seconded by Carolyn. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is the HR committee meeting report. So, I can't get anything to pull up right now, so let me see if I can pull it up here on my phone.
You wanna look
All right.
at that?
I think I've got it. See how well my eyes are.
It's okay. There we go.
Okay.
Perfect.
No, that'd be great. Okay. Yep, so we had, Mimi had, and Art had composed a response to the grievance that we currently have. And then, yes, yeah, we talked about the positive COVID-19 and then the response there. New teacher orientation, I think you guys all got photos of that from the person in charge there of that. I can't remember her name.
Stacy Evans is
Stacey
our,
Evans.
is our new teacher coordinator.
Yeah. Someday we will really see their faces. So I just saw the photo, it's all masked up. Let's see, substitutes and associates, 50% of the people. Yeah. So that could present a problem down the road with if we had a lot of people out and stuff for substitutes, but you guys still foresee that being?
Well, I think
issue
so.
as
I
we
mean,
go
the
in.
survey is concerning because we didn't really have a surplus before. And one thing that factors in there, we have a great group of substitute teachers who, a lot of them are retired teachers. So then you're getting into a little higher risk age group. And so some people I think are taking it a little cautiously, a little slowly. Now, I will say when we were looking for subs in our initial quarantine, we were having subs accept the jobs, and had we not had that additional positive test and exposure, I think we could have made it work. So, you know, yeah, it's definitely a concern, but we're just gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah.
I just have a question about, so the teachers that are taking, you know, that have to be quarantined now, even though they're not sick, then, are they gonna teach online?
Yes, the plan was to have them remote in, but to still get either a sub or to have another staff person, adult, in the room. So they would be working and not taking a sick day.
No, but that's what my question was,
Yes.
they don't have to use their sick time up
Not
for
unless
this.
they really are ill and can't work.
If they are, yeah, if they are ill, but the ones that aren't ill, that are just quarantined, they do not have to take up their sick
Right.
time for this.
That's
Okay.
correct. And if they do have to take sick days, we've talked about it before, there's extra COVID days plus whatever sick leave they have.
Right.
But that's the stance we've taken from the very start of this thing, was that if you're able to do the work remotely, we want you to be able to do it and not, have to take sick leave, so, yep.
I just wanted to double check that. All right, thank you.
Mimi's working on the lane changes, that'll be presented or for approval at the September meeting. And then she is taken into her own hands to do this certification, or is it okay, get some letters.
It's HR for the education.
Sweet.
So I'll pick up all of that, the education specific.
So that's awesome. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, and so then during that 90 minutes, Mimi was planning on to be in those buildings, probably on a rotating basis. So it's really good to have somebody in there communicating with the staff. That's it. Any questions on?
Going back to the substitutes, have we seen more people signing up to be subs? Because I know they loosened the requirements for that.
John, do you have any sense of that?
Not yet, I mean, I know that they have to take a class,
Okay.
and the first class has just happened, and so we haven't, not that I know of.
I think, they are doing what they can to try to encourage that. They've lowered the age to 20 from 21, so we might be able to garner some Simpson students there. And then the sub-authorization class is being offered through the AEA. I think they can get it online, so the powers to be, so to speak, are making it easier for people, I think, and hopefully that does help.
Anything else? All right, moving on to, under finance facilities and sports services, number 5A, high school and middle school.
Was the technology one or not?
Not yet.
That's tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. We worked through the summertime, and my brain was always thinking that we did this stuff in the summer, but this, with security cameras, they can do that within the school day, or in the evenings, or they're not bothering the school during the day. And Ray probably knows more about this than I
A
do.
lot of that type of work will be done out in the hallways, which we've had contractors in before. We want to make sure, of course, this time that it's the same contractors every day, so we're minimizing the number of people out, in and out of the building. But that shouldn't be too big of a disturbance during the day.
So we need to set the time and date for that public hearing, and we've set tentatively the 28th at 5:30 p.m., so we need action on that, and then the project plan and specifications. I'm sure you guys all read that 90-page document.
Would have been a pretty small packet without it.
Two separate approval items. Okay. Maybe we can start with one of them.
Make a motion to approve the plans and specifications for the 2020 high school and middle school security camera project as recommended.
Motion made by Ben,
Second.
seconded by Lori. Any further discussion by the board? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And the second would be for the public hearing.
Make a motion to set the public hearing for September 28th to 5:30 p.m.
Okay, motion made by Ben. Seconded by Lori.
Right.
I don't know why I blanked there. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? No. All right. Motion carries 7-0. Finance Committee report.
Marilyn, do you wish?
You guys-
Go ahead, go for it, because I'm still trying to find it. I'm going
It's
through.
2:12.
We were fortunate to have Abby, our new food services director, come. And she shared what's going on with food services. And on the summer emergency meal service, and breakfast was added, which was nice for that. The regular school nutrition program started at Irving, which is in the classrooms. It's interesting how they do that. What was most impressive, since it was the finance committee meeting, is she is pretty driven to make sure that we solve the problem with negative lunch accounts. And her last district sounded like it was like where we're at when she started, and it was all caught up by the time she was done. So that was very, in that line, very encouraging. So it's very interesting to meet her. And for anybody that hasn't met her, she seems to be a very charming person. I would suggest you find a way to stop over and see her. We did go over, and which I hope we do every month, to see if there's any changes in our expenses on our SAVE budget and our PEPAL budget. And we asked that that be included in the board packet, which it was. And that was basically it. Carolyn, does anything ring your bell on that?
I don't think it was something that we were gonna vote on or anything, but just, her opinion or what she saw work a little bit better at her other, district was that just how you apply donations makes a difference. Like, if you're constantly like letting someone just barely meet the threshold, you know, she had better results letting it go and then applying it more equitably or equally. And so she had some ideas on that, which we thought we would consider. And yeah, I mean, it's still, you know, going to who needs it, but just how you do it. She had a different way of doing it in the other district, and she did have really good results with it, so.
And we did talk about, that policy we were required to put in, we kind of put in on the fly, that policy 710.4, whatever it is. Have invited Abby to look at that, and then if there are changes, we'll bring that policy committee back to the board.
A lot of good ideas she presented. Okay. Facilities project update? No, we still have, we have a monthly financials somewhere.
No, we don't. Well, we don't have any monthly financials this
Okay.
meeting to approve, so.
All right. Facilities project update.
A couple of kind of, the standard placeholders are there, those things that are still in progress. We did have a couple of sort of freak occurrences, I guess you might say. We had an 8 or 10 inch pipe, rather large pipe, behind the high school, to the east of the high school, with a big crack in it. We had all kinds of water coming up in a closet down the hallway. Most of it was outside, but we're fortunate there was some kind of youth softball meeting out there. Somebody saw it, contacted Bernie, and Bernie and Mr. Siebersma were on site and got a hold of IMU and got the water shut off. So first of all, it was fortunate that that didn't go all night or all weekend. But Vanderpool came out the next day and dug it up, and it's a huge pipe with a huge crack.
Wow.
So that was one little unexpected thing. I don't know, is there any other detail there I'm forgetting, John?
No, that was,
It's not, it sounds so academic to say a huge pipe with a huge crack, but that's what it was. And the other kind of freaky thing was, at our football scrimmage Friday, they had to play without lights and kind of hurried up. Well, there was a light pole that burst into flames in the, I think the Little League parking lot area, but it knocked out the lights elsewhere. So there's something that we don't have happen every day. So those are both kind of facility things that, stuff just happens, just comes up. So,
It was a fast football game.
yeah.
Okay, next is let's see, the board calendar. For next meeting, we have technology tomorrow morning. Are you,
That's stressing you
with
out?
all the extra stuff, or are you in need of that?
It's fine.
It's okay.
We'll get in the morning, it'll be fine.
Might be a little therapy session for you.
It might be.
We'll bring you a big coffee.
I mean, if you want a break, I'm kind of swamped at work where I've got a 7 o'clock meeting tomorrow technically.
Either way's fine. It doesn't matter.
I'm throwing it to you.
She's handing it to you, Ray.
It's the
trying to
board
give-
that needs to call it off, not Ray, so.
Yeah.
We'll still bring you
I don't know
coffee
what
if
the
you need
Do
it.
you have anything new?
Yeah.
I don't really have it, it's just some little things to update on, but
I'm in the same situation as Carolyn right now in my life, so.
I'm fine skipping it if there's nothing new, because you've got a lot of
Can you
things to
just
do.
email us? Would that be,
What do
you
you do? Yeah, that'd be fine.
just want to email us what you got?
Sounds good.
If we have questions, we can
Yeah,
email you back.
Good.
shifting priorities, we're agile.
No, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I could sleep 2 more minutes.
One question on that though, for when the sixth graders do get them, is somebody gonna be there to help them understand the Chromebook, like to open it up and, 'cause I'm assuming they've never had them, so.
Well,
Yep.
so they,
Many of them have used in the elementary. so-
Okay.
Well, actually, every elementary, I would be shocked if they haven't already used it.
They've used them, okay,
But yes, they'll sit down for just like 5 to 10 minutes,
okay,
make sure they can log in, check a few things off, and be on their way.
good, good.
I have one question. So like the kids that are learning from remotely from like Wilder, Whittier, and Emerson, do they have the stuff already? Did they?
So the elementary is what you're asking?
Yeah.
So no, our elementary devices that we ordered are still.
Will be here till-
Are still on back order, and there's been no change in that with the, I'm blanking on the right term now, but basically, we have a ban from importing those into the United States right now.
They were on a human rights violation list or
Right.
something. Yeah.
So are they just using their own devices then right now to log on
Right now, we're handing out as many devices as we can within
from the carts?
within the building. Yep. So we're doing what we can to provide those that need something, but it's inevitable. We'll probably run out at some point. Until we're-
And they have internet now, right? The ones that need it?
Not yet. Those devices just arrived last week. So
Okay.
if you talk about our hotspots.
Hotspot.
Yep, we are gonna still provide those. Those just arrived last week, so.
Okay.
We'll be getting those set up as quickly as we can, but every curveball seems to delay that.
So I would say, the IT office and the enrollment office is a subset of IT. They have been working so hard and so swamped here lately, but are doing a great job, so.
We're trying.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you. Not easy.
So we got policy committee, facilities, HR, curriculum, and then next board meeting is September 14th.
Yeah, I think we can just go ahead and skip the policy meeting for this time. You've got plenty to do, and we're pretty well caught up.
Well,
That's fine.
it might just be maybe an email one for that.
If we have the food service
The food
one,
service one is one.
I'll email it out.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Facilities, HR, curriculum.
Like, can we go to other?
Oh,
Is
yeah.
there another?
Oh,
That's, we moved that to the
Oh.
top.
We have board reports up top, but that's fine.
go ahead,
Sorry.
Carolyn.
I was just aware of making sure people kind of watch the news, what happened in Florida today? Where the
Pardon me?
judge cited that the control should be within the districts, whether they go online. So they.
Where was this?
In Florida. I mean, who knows where it's gonna land, but
Yeah.
they ruled in favor of local control.
Doesn't Des Moines get
Decisions.
their ruling, is it this week or next week?
I haven't heard the timeline on that. I know of the situation, but I don't know. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, it's obviously not just an Iowa issue, not just a local issue. Everybody's dealing with it.
Everybody's fighting the same.
Yeah.
I did have one question, so the meals being served in the classrooms, who's doing that? I've heard custodians are doing it. Who's actually?
John, I think it's food service staff,
Food
isn't
service
it?
are delivering them. They are they each have a desk outside their door, so they bring their, like in the containers, set them out on the table with the amounts of milks and the kind that they have. They bring them in and distribute them.
The teachers
does.
does.
And probably my guess is, and I don't know this specifically, is that the custodians go around and pick up the garbage, because we don't have that big of garbage cans. So that would be my guess, that they would be doing that. But, I mean, it's been going okay, I think.
Yeah, it's been
I haven't had any concerns about it.
Sorry, that was my
Okay.
other.
Is it time?
Yes,
It is time.
I move to adjourn?
I'll second.
Okay.
Aye.
Motion made by Ken, seconded by Carolyn. Everyone's in favor? Okay.
Aye.
7-0.